franktalks.com.
Stop being single. Remember to sign up for the Stop Being Single newsletter and get weekly tips about how to stop being single and how to start up a love life. Sign up at franktalks.com now.
Need help with love, sex, dating and relationships? Visit franktalks.com.
Check out the Frank Talks Relationships column currently running in the Suburban Newspaper online magazine. To read more, please visit thesuburban.com.
Relationships, sex, passion with Dr. Laurie Betito. Hear the show live weeknights 10 to 11 on CJAD 800.
Joining us now is larger-than-life dating coach Frank Kermit. I'm sure you have something to say about this, Frank.
Oh, absolutely.
I know that's not what we're talking about, but since you're here and all...
Well, when it comes to fat acceptance, I do have to concur with some of the people who texted in that being a bigger person gets you a lot of scorn in public.
Right.
And if you actually happen to show that you're holding hands with somebody or in a relationship with somebody in public, there are people who are going to look at you as if you're doing something wrong.
Right.
You're shattering their interpretation of reality.
Right.
Wait a minute, somebody who's fat is in a relationship?
You mean they're getting some? You know,
Yeah.
that's what they're thinking, right?
Somebody is with it, and a lot of these people can't seem to find love in their own lives, and they look at you and say, wow, you're not perfect, and you're getting it. There has to be some sort of a gimmick.
Right.
Person must be rich. Person must have something going on.
Right. It's a little bit like ageism, too, when we look at the difference in age, you know, the age gap relationships when they're really, really wide. We assume the same thing. Why would this young, pretty girl want an old guy?
Right. And
Right.
there's always, it's very hard for people to just deal with the fact that everybody's got different preferences.
Yeah, and it's hard to explain how these preferences even. You can't explain a preference. I just like it. It's like somebody said, "Why do you like the color red?" I don't know. I just like the color red, right? It's hard to explain a preference.
I have to tell you, one of the rules I had when I was dating many people many years ago was that I would never meet a girl's friends or family until after we got serious.
Really? Because you didn't want them influencing her.
Well, my experience is that if I was dating somebody, but we still wasn't serious, it was casual, and I would meet her friends and family, inevitably they would say, "Why are you with this big guy? You can do better."
Right.
And shortly after that, they would break up with me.
Right. That's exactly that situation that the guy had. Exactly that. And says he to this day still feels guilty about dumping a girl just because of the pressures from the family. Interesting.
I wonder if he's also wondering if he's missing out. Because he didn't mention that if he had found love again.
Right. He moved on, he said, so I don't know.
If he moved on, but if it's always in the back of his head that he's with the wrong person now because he wasn't strong enough to tell people where they could go with their opinions.
Right. Or he just simply feels the guilt of, maybe he's just a real nice guy and he feels the guilt of having just lied and having dumped her for that shallow a reason. For him, right? That was the implication. I just want to read a couple of texts and we'll move on to that. Someone says, I often question what my petite girlfriend is doing with me and voice it. This is an issue that affects us men as well. Someone else says, as youngsters, guys are fed images from Playboy and Penthouse that perpetuates this. I was given a Playboy at 11. I, too, remember wonderful women from my youth that I didn't chase because of weight. I wish I had. There you go. And someone else says, by the way, Marilyn says, by the way, fat men seem way too feminine with their soft curves. It's also unhealthy, which is also unappealing. That's from Marilyn. So, obviously there's different sides to this. Again, it is about a preference, right?
It is about a preference, but people have to understand that just because other people are not okay with who you're dating, if you happen to be dating someone and you have a preference for either bigger people or people with any sort of idiosyncrasy, You can't let other people's opinions dictate your life.
Right.
Because at some point, you're the one who has to suffer the consequences of your choices, not anybody else.
Right.
And my concern for people is, if you're letting people influence you this much, where you're going to break up with somebody, in what other areas of your life are you miserable because you're trying to please everyone?
That's a good question. And moving on from there, so there was another situation where, and I've had this several times, quite a few times over the years, where women come to see me and they say, my husband won't have sex with me, and right away, could he be gay? They ask me that, and I've never met the guy, but they say, is this a sign? Because women always assume that guys are always wanting to have sex, which of course that's not true. But and their first reaction is he gay? He must be gay. So let's talk about when in reality that might be the case.
Okay, now let's look at some of the emotional needs of women here, my little specialty.
Mm-hmm.
That question came up so much when I was going through my little personal,
your training, right?
My training,
Mm-hmm.
And something I didn't realize is that once I made the change, once I changed my behaviors and I started performing in an attractive manner, I actually had women tell me the following: a few years ago, I actually thought you were gay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm as straight can be,
mm-hmm.
but some of the behaviors I enacted did give women pause, but they wouldn't tell me at that time. They only told me after the case. So the fact is, not every man you assume is gay is actually gay. The fact is, he just might be very feminine in his behavior. And he may not even know it. He may not even realize he's projecting that. And that's very different from when somebody is a homosexual and is trying to hide that, or they're in denial,
Mm-hmm.
or there are two minds of it, and then go ahead and try to force themselves to live a heterosexual lifestyle.
I mean, I have heard, and I've seen couples where people have said, I'm sure her husband is gay. He just doesn't know it yet. Or I'm sure, and like looking at a heterosexual couple, but making that kind of assumption, obviously just based on mannerisms, right? What else are you basing it on? Because you're not in their heads.
No, it could be based on mannerisms, could be based on preferences. If the guy in question is not a big fan of the local sports team and he's not a fan of sports in general, well, he must be gay.
Right. So all seriousness though, are there signs that women can look for or that would indicate maybe that's what I am dealing with?
There are some signs, but with that said, I do want to be fair to the women in these situations, and even to men who may be with a closeted lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
People who have been hiding their sexual orientation have probably been doing it all of their lives. They've gotten very good at it.
Yes.
So if you're in a situation where you're in a relationship with someone and it finally comes out, they finally come out of the closet, they're ready to accept themselves and go public, you can't beat yourself up for it. The fact is, they have survived because they were very good at deceiving people and hiding the truth. It wasn't done maliciously. It was a matter of their ability to survive.
Self-preservation, right.
But with that said, there are some signs you should be on the look for. The first one, as you said, a reluctance for sex.
Mm-hmm.
Just what seems to be a low libido.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes avoiding.
But I just want to add to that, just as a sexologist here or as a person who specializes in this, is that low libido in itself, doesn't indicate that. However, if the person exhibits multiple signs and has never had libido, like if the woman says he's never wanted sex, is very different than we've been sexually active and suddenly we don't have it anymore.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And even then, someone who, let's say, has never really been into sex might not indicate homosexuality. It might indicate asexuality.
Or depression.
It could be a number of things.
Right.
So any one sign is not automatically, it's not a one-to-one ratio.
Right.
If anything, it's more like a syndrome. It could be a collection of different signs together that might say there's a stronger argument here.
And let's not jump to the conclusion that our partner is gay if they are not jumping to have sex with you. Other things may be going on. We're talking to Frank Kermit tonight. He's a regular here on Passion. Actually, you'll be hearing him on Monday as well for the Boys Club. We're talking about women who worry that their husbands might be gay. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, but if you have, you can share with us at 514-800. You're listening to Passion on CJAD.
You're listening to Passion with Dr. Laurie Betito, the podcast. Hear the show live weeknights 10 to 11 on CJAD 800.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about
This is Passion with Dr. Laurie Betito on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
Joining me tonight, Frank Kermit, our regular here on Passion. He's a dating coach. He's an author. He's the relationship columnist for the Suburban Online magazine, and he's written about this topic, which is when your partner suspects that she is with someone who is in fact gay. It could be the truth. It might not be. She might be completely imagining it. But often, I know I've seen it in my practice where women will come to me and they will ask me the question, do you think my husband is gay? He doesn't want to have sex with me anymore. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's the usual question. But of course, you got to dig. That's not enough. Like just knowing that's certainly not enough. So we were talking about some other signs.
We're talking about some other signs. Another sign is someone must get intoxicated before they have sex.
So every time they either have to get stoned or wasted or something before they have sex.
Exactly.
Okay.
Another sign, unaccounted for lost periods of time.
Uh-huh.
Now, this is also a sign that someone may be having an affair, but in this case, if they are having an affair, they may be having an affair with someone of the same gender.
That's true. Or frequenting spots where not necessarily a relationship with, but where sexual practices.
Well, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Then we have the two extremes. Someone who doesn't talk about sex at all, because that's how they have just learned how to protect themselves. And then you have the other extreme, someone who talks about sex way too much, trying to prove something.
Yeah, the person who protests too much, right?
Mm-hmm. And when we're looking at a single person, we're looking at a single person that tends not to have too many girlfriends or too many boyfriends. In what we have discussed in the past with my work with adult male virgins, is that adult male virgins are sometimes accused of being homosexual because nobody ever sees them with a girlfriend.
Right. And they may never have had a girlfriend, but it doesn't make them gay.
No, exactly.
Although you can have adult male gay virgins, too.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. One of the things that I teach men when they're coming to me for help is that I'm teaching them about the emotional needs of women.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always scoffing or laughing at emotional need number 10, which is prove you're not a closet homosexual.
Huh.
Because a woman doesn't want to end up being abandoned for another man down the road.
Right.
And most of the guys who learn this say, well, that's not my problem, that doesn't apply to me, and they scoff at it. And then I ask them questions like, have you ever had to make a choice where it was either stay home and have sex with the girl that you're seeing or go out with the boys, and you've chosen to go out with the boys?
And
some of the guys say, well, yeah, but I'm going out with the boys. I'm going out to a gay. I said, so let me get this straight. You had the choice of having sex with a woman or hanging out with a bunch of men watching other men on the TV screen.
Right. So
and when I put it in that context, these men are taken aback thinking, is she going to think that? I said, well, she has to rationalize why you wouldn't want to have sex with her. Now,
so she might think that. Okay. So
yeah.
in that situation, it leads somebody to question at least.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, when you're choosing a male friend, let's say you have to choose between your girlfriend and a male friend, and you're always putting the male friend as a priority over the girlfriend, your girlfriend's going to start to wonder, look, would you rather be in a relationship with him?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of guys, especially the younger ones or the very inexperienced ones, don't seem to understand that.
Right.
They don't grasp that concept. And nobody's ever told them, hey, I think you might be gay, out of fear that he actually might be gay and he doesn't want to deal with it. It's only after he changes these behaviors that it comes to his attention.
Interesting. So let's talk about what happens if, in fact, you discover it is the truth. That is, she finds out that, yes, her suspicions were right. He's gay. What next?
Well, first of all, finding out that your husband, and especially if you have children together, is actually gay could violate all of a woman's emotional needs because it's a chain reaction, a ripple effect.
Right.
So my first advice is remain calm.
Yeah, that might be a little difficult to do.
Might be, yes,
Yeah.
but the idea is you have to remember, this was likely not a malicious act from your partner. It was not personal. In most cases, your partner cares for you deeply,
right,
but just has horrible issues.
Right. And it's not something they've done to you. You know, sometimes you think, oh, look what you've done to me. But they're suffering too. They're probably suffering a whole lot more, in fact.
And your partner is probably terrified about this coming out into the open and anybody getting hurt. So the first and foremost thing, the last thing any person should do, man or woman, when you find out that your partner has been secretly gay, you do not go on any sort of smear campaign.
No.
Especially if you have children involved, because your rage right now is understandable, okay? It's normal. It's understandable. Getting violent, getting abusive, emotionally abusive, mentally abusive, trying to alienate the person, those are the worst things you can do, because once you calm down, you're going to realize that you just hurt somebody who you really cared about.
Right.
And they were and that's when you're going to understand that they were going through a lot more pain and a lot more challenges than you could possibly know.
Exactly. And I think compassion is key here. I mean, there's no other word for it except compassion. And I've actually seen these situations work out in the end. Work out meaning where they have stayed best of friends, and they have. I've even seen this in people who've transgendered.
Exactly. So there's always some way to work it out. And especially if you have kids, you owe it to your kids to try and set an example of, look, sometimes a crisis is going to happen within a relationship, within a family unit. We got to work to keep this a family, and now it's going to change. The dynamic is going to change.
Yeah.
But you should never turn against a family member, even in the worst possible scenarios. Right. You have to try and remember that, because that's the example your children will remember and carry with you.
Exactly. Frank, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. We're running out of time on this, but appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us, and we welcome you on the Boys Club on Monday night.
I look forward to it. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Frank. Take care. Coming up, but just tell you about a couple of things that are happening in Montreal that you might want to mark your calendars for, and we'll say goodbye. You're listening to Passion on CJAD.
You're listening to Passion with Dr. Laurie Betito, the podcast. Hear the show live weeknights 10 to 11 on CJAD 800.
Before we wrap this up, I just want to share with you, barely can have the time to do this, but there's a women's wellness workshop taking place Sunday, November 16th at 10 a.m. to 12. I will be there giving a talk. Sandra Riche and Mayte Gomez will be there giving a talk. They're the co-authors of How Cinderella Grew Up to Become a Happy and Empowered Woman. Corey Sirota will be there. She's a professional counselor. She'll be talking about living positively. I'll be talking about sex, of course. So would love to have you join us there, and the tickets are $20. Proceeds going towards helping victims of violence. Tomorrow night we will start giving away some free tickets to the event. Hope to see you there. CapinoPhysio.ca, that's actually my secondary office. CapinoPhysio.ca is where you will get your information. Thank you very much to Andrew and Hal in Master Control. News is next, followed by the CJAD Comedy Show. Have a wonderful rest of the night, and please remember, life is short, so make sure you take the time to smell the flowers and indulge your passions.
Listen to Passion with Dr. Laurie Betito, live weeknights 10 to 11 on CJAD and CJAD.com.
Remember to sign up for the Alternative Relationship Choices ARC newsletter and get weekly tips to guide you through polyamory, swinging, and the basics of non-monogamy. We can help you find your ARC, your alternative relationship choice. Sign up at franktalks.com now.
If you need help with your relationships, my buddy Frank, he's got some tips. Just go to franktalks.com. His advice is better than your mom's. He knows what you're going through, 'cause Frank has been there too. So log on to franktalks.com, franktalks.com.
Remember to sign up for the Speed Dating Advice newsletter and get weekly tips to increase your matches. Learn every speed dating secret that speed dating companies don't want you to know. Sign up at franktalks.com now.
franktalks.com, franktalks.com, franktalks.com.